Like your language.
Well, hello there and welcome back to the Way to Native Chronicles. We're starting off today with a little bit of a different scene than just sitting in my reloading room. And I was thinking, you know, one of the nicest things about hunting is being able to do stuff with your computer. Well, maybe not quite. But you know, the two do sort of complement each other. We're out here right now, we're enjoying this beautiful day. And we're actually pretty successful, so it's been an excellent day. But you know, you have your guns and you develop a lot of memories with them, and one of the nice things to do is to memorialize them in photos. And I've found over the years that it's really difficult to do justice to a gun by taking a photograph of it, but I have been working on it and I've become fairly successful at it, and I have some techniques that I'd like to share with you on how to do that. I better stir this a little bit. And you know, because a gun is a beautiful thing and it deserves to have a proper photograph taken of it. Now what I'm going to show you is some techniques of taking a picture of a gun, whatever gun you want, and using some free software called GIMP to cut that gun out of the picture and put it on a transparent background, and then you can take that gun that's now sitting on a, like it's sitting on a piece of glass floating, and you can just place that over top of any nice hunting photo that you have. So that winds up creating quite a nice photograph, composition I guess you would call it. And I'm going to show you a few of these examples in this video here. So let's get started on this. I'm gonna just dive right into it with capturing the screen of how I do it when I'm using the software. But the software I'm using is just called GIMP. It's for free. You can look it up on Google and download it. So I better get back to cooking up this stew here. I hope you enjoy the video. Oh, it's going to be good. The place to begin is to have a good photo. You can take a photo like this quite simply if you put your gun on a surface outside. I would recommend using daylight and not in direct sunlight. Take that photo of yours and load it into the photo editor that you get with Windows. And with that you can adjust the richness of the color. I'd recommend doing that first, and then bump up the clarity or the sharpness of the image till you get the type of look that you want. You might want to tweak the lighting just a little bit too. Once you get that set about right, then go ahead and save that new version of your photo. It's always good to have a good place to start from. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to take a look at what kind of a background photo we want to use. So in this example I have a few background photo candidates, we call them, and some are better than others. This one here is particularly nice for the general composition and content, but also I have the bit of a empty space up here, which is just perfect for putting the gun into the picture. So I think I'm going to use this picture. Let's go back now to this image that we enhanced, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up using GIMP. And GIMP is a very useful image editor. It takes a little while to get the hang of it, but if you follow this video I'll show you how it works. Okay, here we have our image loaded up. Now what do we do first? Let's go to image, and let's adjust the image size a little bit, the canvas size. Now I don't really have to do this, but I'm going to trim this photo to an appropriate size, partly because when I'm finished processing this photo of the gun alone and putting it on a transparent background, then I can use it for other purposes as well. So now we have the extraneous details removed from the photo, and I'll just go ahead and I'll save this down as a GIMP format file, put it in the appropriate location, give it a name you can recognize it by later. There we go. So now we have our photo basis to work on. Let's zoom it so it fits the window. You can just use Control Shift J to do that. I'm using all menu actions in this demonstration so you can follow along a little better. But you can see here we have our image. I'm going to zoom in on it. What I'm going to do next is something that's very important, and you shouldn't forget this. I'm going to go to the Layers menu, and I need to add an alpha channel. You have to have an alpha channel in order to snip out the background. Now I'm going to select that free select tool and take a look here. That is the mode that you want to be using. That's going to add whatever you select with this tool into the selection. There are different modes. Be very conscious of which mode you're in, because if you've got the wrong one, it could mess you up later on. So what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to click around the edge of the image, and I'm going to create a complete enclosed space using this tool. And you'll notice that I'm clicking just a little bit inside of the edge of the image. That's the best thing to do. Now here I'm holding down the mouse wheel and dragging in order to drag the image. That really helps a lot. And now we're just speeding up the video a little bit until I get to another part here that I'd like to show you, where I kind of click a little bit out of line of where I want to be, and I want to redo that. So you can just hit the backspace key in order to remove nodes. See, there's one removed, there's another one. I just hit the backspace key twice, and now I can continue on. So as you're going along through this photo editing, you're bound to make a few little slip ups, so just use the backspace key. And you know, if you make some real bad slip ups and you don't want to go back, don't lose heart, because you can go revisit this outline that you're making, and you can click on these little nodes and actually drag them and move them around after the fact too, before you do the final cutting of the photo. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to I'm speeding up this selection process for your benefit, just to show that it really can be done. I'm not really this fast in real life. So we're going to go right around, and you want to kind of think ahead a little bit, you know, where you want to go. You can go right down to very fine detail with this selection tool, which is really nice, because you get into some areas like this and they're very fine pieces of the photo that you're dealing with. But the selection tool is able to handle that just fine. When I'm doing real fine pieces like that, I do tend to click more or less right on the edge. So now we get to the end of our selection, and this is important. I want you to pay attention here. Okay, here's one more node, and now I'm going to close up this thing, and I'm just going to click on the original node, which you can see lights up when I put my mouse over top of it like that. Okay, so I put my mouse over top of it, click once, okay, just once, there we go. Now on the inside of that selection, double click. There, I double clicked, and you can see that the little ant tracks that display the selection change in appearance, and you can see that that selection area is done. Now what I want you to do is I want to invert that selection. And when I invert it, you see along the outside edges of the photo, now there's ant tracks around there too. That's indicating that that is the area that I'm going to clear now. I do clear, or I could just hit the delete key, and bingo bango, no more background there. Now what I like to do is I like to save frequently. Software is not always bulletproof. Just in case, you put a lot of work into defining a selection like this, so you don't want to lose it. So now I'm going to remove some of these inner portions that I want to get rid of, because I want everything to be transparent when I place it on the photo. So here we'll zip along here a little bit, and I'm going to remove this little portion under the scope. So click to close that node on one click, then double click here. That selects it. Now we go up to the edit menu again and click clear, or just hit the delete button and save it again, because we sure don't want to lose all this work, right? Okay, now we got a little more work to do. All these little pieces have to go. So how about we get rid of this portion bound by the rifle sling. This takes a little bit of work doing one of these photos. That's why I'm making a video like this, because when I was learning how to do this stuff, I can't tell you how many times I basically screwed up, and I got to the end of a long selection process like this, doing it really careful, such a good job, and then at the end something goes awry and I click the wrong button or something like that, and then I lost my whole selection. I have to do it over again, and then do it over again and again, and it gets pretty frustrating. So boy, you know, if you can just follow these steps, you might save yourself a lot of grief. Okay, here we're getting to the end of this one here. I'm just emphasizing this again, that on the last node, it's going to light up one click, and then on the inside of what you've selected, not the outside, or else I think you would lose the selection. Do it on, double click on the inside and then delete it. And of course, we gotta take a look at our work. Okay, it's looking good so far. Let's go to File and save this thing, just in case the computer crashes or runs out of resources or something like that. There goes another little piece. Let's trim out the rest of the trigger guard. Here is kind of fine work. You notice I backed up there to go around that little hump using the backspace key. And we'll close this guy up, and we'll knock that piece out of there. You can zoom in, and using that mouse wheel and pressing it down and dragging, that really helps for moving around the page and for zooming in and out. If you just hold down the control key and roll the mouse forward or back, you can zoom in and out quickly. Learning little shortcuts like that really helps for working on an image. Okay, now I think we've removed everything. I'm going to save it down, of course. And we have ourselves, now I've deselected everything so that I can see the image without the ant tracks around it, and kind of zoom in, move around a little bit, make sure everything's covered before we move on to the next phase. But you can see that trimming does a very nice job. We're quite fortunate to have software like GIMP that's available for free. See, even those fine things like that lashing comes through just nicely. Okay, so I think we're good to go for the next step. There's our image. Now what do we do next? I think we should move on to getting that background picture. And where is that? That's over here. And the background picture we want is this one. And you notice I'm just going to click and drag that, and I'm going to drop it onto that area of the GIMP editor. That's how you add a new photo to your editing space. And as I do that, then you see a new tab pops up and there's that photo. Now with this photo, it's a little too small, so ideally I should have chosen a larger resolution one, but I can get by with this. See, that's the size of this photo. Now if we go back over to this one we just created and check the properties on it, you're going to see it's quite a bit larger, but no problem. I'm going to just scale up the background photo because it is going to be a faded photo in the background anyways, and from what I can see it's going to scale up just fine. It's not going to be detrimental. So I had about 4500 for the width of that gun. I'm going to make this 4700. That's my best guess. That'll probably make it fit about right, and then I can take this photo and go back to the gun, and I'll select everything or hit Control A, and then I'll go and I'll copy or hit Control C. Now I'll go back to the background image, and I don't want to just do a Control V to paste. I want to paste a special way, paste to a new layer. Bang, there it is. Get that movement tool, click on that, and click right on the image of the gun, and you can drag it around now and place it where it looks best on the photo. You can just monkey around with it all you want this way. And then once you get something that looks good, you might want to just change the canvas size of the entire composition, because really I think it would look better if it was a little bit wider and narrower. So I'm going to reduce the height a little bit and then see how that looks. For me that looks better. So now we have that done. Now I'm going to click on that layer that contains the background photo, and I'm going to increase its or decrease its opacity. I'm going to fade it out a little bit. Now this is kind of a ticklish part of the operation because you're just sort of guessing. What I see in the GIMP editor when I do this isn't exactly reflective of how the final product's going to be, so I'm going to just save this down. Really I haven't saved this new composition to a separate file yet, so that's this is the time to do that. Let's give it a distinct name. You can call it something like this. I'm keeping the original gun only photo separate because that can be used in other projects. Okay, we got that saved down, and now I'm going to export this, and this shows you briefly how to export this composition to a PNG file or a JPEG file. Now PNG is generally the recommended format, but I find it sometimes a bit of a pain to work with, double clicking on and previewing from Windows Explorer. So I tend to just go with JPEG unless I have a different reason. Another reason for going with PNG is if I was just going to use that rifle by itself on a transparent background, then I would want to put it on a PNG, because PNG will give a transparency to it, whereas a JPEG will just fill in that transparent area as being white. Okay, let's take a look at how that amount of transparency or opaqueness on the background looks by viewing it in Windows. And you know, when I look at that, I'm thinking, it's a little too faded. Okay, so let's just take another kick at the can here. Let's bump that opacity up a little bit. I think it looks, this is a matter of personal preference, but I think you should, as a rule, have that background image a little bit faded, because the main point of interest is the rifle after all, even though that is a beautiful woman in the background, but you know, this is about the gun. Okay, so now I've increased the opacity and I reload this picture, and well, now that's looking pretty good. So to me, that is finished composition, and really it didn't take all that long, and it's produced a good effect. So to recap, what we did is we started off with a good photo image of the gun by taking a picture of it in daylight without any shadows on it, and then enhanced it and trimmed it, laid it over this background picture, and we're done. So thanks for watching.